And, you're young, so life has not gone on as long as other people. So
Not quite.
not yet,
No.
or maybe it has, and I don't even know. Maybe I'm about to find out, and you'll be like, "Oh, I grew up in a very bad home." No,
Luckily, no. So, that's
I'm going
good
to find
news.
that out.
Yeah.
Well, I have Jordan Walker on today. I'm very excited to have Jordan Walker on for many, many reasons. For one, as a young voice, and I always like to hear the whole gamut of what's going on in the world. But two, I'm very privileged and happy to have Jordan as one of my artists. And I didn't meet Jordan until yesterday. No, day before yesterday, I guess. Day before
a couple
yesterday.
days.
Yeah. And you're just like you are on your, YouTube videos, whatever, your Instagram. It's just like identical, in fact, which is good.
Yeah.
So if you watch him on Instagram, you'll see that's exactly how he is.
I'm a bad actor, so,
You're just, you are who you are. It's just really quite obvious. You have a genuine sensibility to you. And so we're going to talk to him about kind of not only his life, but how he got into my gallery and how this whole thing kind of just came about today. Yeah. So, and how a kid from Rhode Island who lives in Oregon is painting the Sonoran Desert for the very first time.
For the very first time, yeah.
So what was that like? I really actually want to get your take on, you painted a long time, and we're going to find out more about that, but the very first time to ever even be in Arizona, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what was that like going to the Sonoran Desert?
Oh, incredible. I've been studying and learning about the ecosystem of the desert out there for years, been wanting to go. Finally got out there, and it's just so much cooler than any, learning from a distance can ever be when you actually see all of the different species of cacti, like the crazy stuff going on in the trees, like all kinds of, there's mistletoe and other things growing in ways you'd never expect, and just the quality of light. I've been out there the last few days, sunrise to sunset.
Yeah,
and
that's what you got to do, guys, as a painter.
Yeah.
Sunrise to sunset.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just so cool because in the morning the light comes out and hits the mountains. There's about a little less than half an hour of time when that light is coming down, going from red to yellow and then brighter colors, and then it's just gone, and like all of the shadow definition is immediately gone right after that. And it's just this fleeting moment, more so than anywhere else I've ever been. When I don't know why that is, but it's really really special.
It is. And then sometimes you'll get these clouds, especially if they're kind of thin clouds that then you get even crazier reds and dark purples and colors. You're like, what?
Yeah.
So you didn't get anything of those. I think it was all pretty much just cloudless.
It's been pretty bluebird day, but it's been nice. It's been really nice. And I was able to go up Bear Canyon up to Seven Falls over there, which is a completely different type of ecosystem from what's going on down in the lowlands. So, that elevation change in the desert is so cool because there's so much difference and just going a fairly short distance.
Did you get into junipers?
I didn't get all the way up into junipers, but I got to a point where I started seeing a lot more agave, started to see all of the sycamores and cottonwoods and things growing up in the canyon there. Yeah. And it was
because
really cool.
We have junipers not that far from here, really.
Yeah.
You can get to them in a few hours.
Yeah.
In fact, if you go up today at the end, you zip up, you'll probably run into. And I'm bringing this up because Jordan is a tree lover like myself. And we're going to do a show. I guess we might as well announce it in October. We're going to do a one-man show on just his trees. So you want to talk a little bit about that before we move forward?
Yeah, well, I'm honored to be represented by Mark now, and this is just a great opportunity for me to explore something that I've been really interested in for a while, which are ancient trees. Thinking about how some organisms that are alive on this planet live for literally thousands of years and are still alive and are still kicking and doing their thing. And, the sense of deep time, the sense of age, all of the stories that go along with these beings, these trees that, have seen so many storms and fires and, anything that natural calamity can throw at them, and are still surviving. And the way that all of these shapes and forms get twisted over time, things get broken off, things regrow in new directions. Just absolutely amazing visually, and just to think about them and be in the presence of these these cool trees.
You know, we had talked about titles for your show, but you just gave the title as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, which thing did I say?
You said Deep Time.
Deep Time. I'm really into the concept of deep time. So
that's a great title.
Yeah.
So nobody can use this. If I see Deep Time come up in any other art galleries before October, I'll know where you got it.
All right.
So, you know, what was it like? Yeah, did you ever? I mean, this is the first time you ever saw a saguaro cactus.
First time.
What is that like for people who've never experienced that?
Absolutely amazing. You know, they're not trees, but they might as well be in a lot of ways because of just the sense of scale of them. You know,
and longevity too.
Longevity, yeah. You know, 300-400 years on some of them, and just like a tree, as it ages, they're going to develop more limbs. They're going to have different shapes happening. You know, a lot of them that I saw over the last couple of days have drooping arms due to freezing and other conditions like that, and you can just tell. You know,
they've lived.
They've got a story. You know, once they get to a certain age, they start to get riddled with woodpecker holes, and you can see that there's this whole other community of animals that rely on them, and they're just these stewards of the desert. It's so cool. Yeah.
And if you look at some of them, you'll see these at the bottom. There'll be these little holes that go around circular, which are rats, which will eat. There's a desert rat that'll eat, which can kill it actually. But you'll see those as well, and you know, and then the Tohoto O'odham, you know, still collect the fruit, so make wine and food and jellies, and you know, it's still a vibrant, you know, source of protein, and you know, and then like I saw a white dove yesterday, I think, and they come up from Mexico once the saguaros start blooming. So I was like, oh, it's almost here. Time is coming on this. Yeah, I mean, I still am in awe when I see them. I really am. It's just it surprises me that I've lived here for over 30 years and. You know, I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't look at one and just go, oh my gosh, or just watch them, or in a wind just to watch them kind of sway. You know, these monstrous cactus, you'd think, how do they not fall down? Sometimes they do, but usually it's because there's too much water and, you know, the ground gets wet and that's it. But they're just incredible. So, yeah, it's so cool that was the first time. And you took on, and we'll put this on the podcast actually, because you showed me the picture. The first saguaro that you chose to paint was not like a nice symmetrical one or something that would be rather. No, it was like an old, gnarled, multi-stalk, crazy looking. I showed it to my wife. She goes, "Oh yeah, I know where that one is."
Yeah, well, it's the famous crested cactus of Sabino Canyon. So you know, crested cacti are really rare. It's a particular genetic effect that only happens very rarely. I think it's like 1 in 1,000 or something like that.
Probably even 1 in 100,000. I think a lot of it they also think it might be virus that gets in there too. They don't know exactly what.
It's a mystery still.
Right.
Yep. So seeing that and having it be so prominent, I just decided, you know, I'm gonna paint a saguaro. I might as well paint the most complicated, difficult one first, and then I won't be trepidatious about attempting any of the others. So it was good.
And I will say you did nail it, so awesome. which is good, because as a lot of my artists know, I use that kind of as a barometer of, you know, can you paint?
All right. Well, hey, that's good to hear.
Probably didn't know it. Probably just as well you didn't know that, but it is something that I look at if people can paint saguaros. And it's hard. It's not fair to have a person paint saguaros if they haven't seen them in person, I don't think, because you just can't get the sense of what it is.
Well, you know, being able to walk around it 360, because from photo reference, and I'm going to have this problem in the studio and have to look back at, you know, multiple different angles of things, but you see that all of the arms sort of flatten out. Especially the ones that have a lot of arms, you can't tell sometimes where one arm begins and the other ends, especially when things are in shadow and the values are kind of similar. So being able to walk around and actually see the form in 3 dimensions is always helpful. And same goes for trees. Anything that's a complicated subject really helps to have that 3-dimensional
Have you always been interested in trees? I'm just curious.
Oh yeah. You know, I've pretty much always been drawn to bristlecone pines, especially
why not?
as a major thing of interest.
Oldest plant, except maybe aspen. I don't know. in existence, right? Like 4,000 years, something like that.
So yeah, the oldest recorded one up in Great Basin National Park, I think, was 5,000. Yeah, and of course it was felled in the process of dating it. So
nice.
That's pretty unfortunate. But so the oldest one currently living, I think, is around the 4,500 range. Methuselah is the name of it.
Yeah, exactly. Which no one knows where it is, right?
Yeah.
They hide it so nobody can know where this is, because people are just weird and they want to. Or if people come around and just stomp the ground around it, just that alone could be enough to cause it not to absorb water or whatever.
Definitely, yeah. Soil impaction would be a huge problem. You know, you see this in all kinds of popular trails, and around here in the desert, you know, there's all of the cryptobiotic soil growing everywhere, and you don't want to disturb that. So, yeah, it's amazing what human traffic can do to an area.
I know it's a problem in Moab too.
Yeah,
people get off the trails, and it's hard not to want to get off the trails, I must admit.
Right.
You know,
and you know, if you're in an area that's not getting a lot of traffic, it's not very populated, then it feels more okay too, because you know maybe 2 other people are going to come here in a year. But if it's somewhere that's a popular trail, it's a good idea to stay on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we know you found the Sonoran Desert, but how did you find your voice as an artist? So where did you grew up in Rhode Island, right?
I did.
Yeah.
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 Believe it or not.
It's a really small state in America, but how many people live in Rhode Island?
I don't know the exact number, but more than the people that live in Alaska. So
or Wyoming or South Dakota or North Dakota, but it's small.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's small. So
how did you end up there? What did your folks do?
Well, that's where I was born. I was born in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
My mother works in a facility with special needs adults. So she's really hardworking, caring person.
Yeah, I'm sure. Have to be.
Absolutely wonderful. And then my dad, while I was growing up, he was mainly a joiner and cabinet maker. So he had a shop, and in the shop he'd make custom cabinetry, and then he'd install it in people's homes and also do all the finishing work. So he'd do moldings and, you know, banisters, and
he's an artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So he was a really big influence to me growing up in terms of realizing, hey, you can actually make stuff with your hands, and you can make a living doing that. And, you know, he ran his own business, and had a lot of late nights, and not coming home until, you know, 3 a.m. or whatever in order to get a job done. And in one way that kind of made me realize, you need to be really dedicated to your craft and be able to do what it takes to get things done, but also that put a lot of stress on the family life. So it's kind of, I got to find that balance there. Nowadays he runs a woodcraft store and is having a great time doing that.
Yeah.
So
still doing arts and crafts stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so did you have brothers and sisters too, or do?
I did not. So I was an only child, and then my parents divorced when I was, how old was I? Probably like 10, I think. And then my dad remarried many years down the line, but I kind of grew up with this this lady and her daughter, and so that daughter became my stepsister. So I do basically have a sister, just not biologically.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah.
You can argue the same, and you do Christmas and all the other things or whatever. Yeah. And so when you're a little kid, were you interested in art?
I was, from day one, pretty much. So my first loves were paleontology and art. So drawing lots of dinosaurs, always, all the time. And, you know, that is still a major love of mine. And, you know...
Is it the drawing that's still a love of yours, or the actual more science of paleontology?
Both, yeah. You know, natural history is huge for me. I grew up going to the library, and I'd check out all of the DK books with, you know, pictures of all the rocks and minerals of the world, all of the animals and everything going on there. So that was sort of my treasure trove of information at the time. And this was late 90s, early 2000s. So there was quite a good number of those books published at that time, and I went through all of them. And I was always interested in drawing from those and learning what I could. Had all kinds of documentaries about paleontology, and just the idea of reconstructing an ancient world that nobody has actually seen, but we can learn about it and envision what it might have been like. It's just so cool. And I've done a lot of paleo art since then as well. So.
And have you done any of that paleo art that is for books or for museums or
Yeah,
that kind of
so
thing?
I haven't done any of it professionally, but I've done quite a lot just for fun, sort of. I have done professional illustration work, just not in the paleo art realm. So yeah.
And so do you love like going to museums that have all the dinosaurs? I love that too, actually. I don't know why, but it just, I guess it's that other world, you know?
It's that other world, and it's that deep time idea again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, thinking not just thousands of years ago, but millions and billions of years ago. You know, seeing fossils from the Precambrian era, as far back as life goes, multicellular life at least.
Right.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Right. And everything on from there. So it's good stuff. Yeah.
And were you interested in comics and things like that as well?
Yeah, so I didn't really get into comics as a kid, which is funny because I'm actually collaborating with a comic artist right now. But I was always into interesting science fiction and fantasy novels. So I would go through tons and tons of standalone books and series and all kinds of work. Again, imagining other worlds, other ways of existing, different alien creatures, and
you've drawn those too, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I've seen those before. And Josh Gibson also. Do you know Josh?
Yes.
Have you reached out to Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does that kind of stuff too. I mean, it's insane what he does. I'll show you his book that he actually published on this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so when we get done. So those kind of things always interest you. And you were always drawing?
Yes.
Yes, constantly.
Yeah, constantly.
Nothing's changed there, I guess.
You know, my dad was a craftsman and my mom was a painter as a hobbyist as well.
Okay.
So I was exposed to the idea that art was just a thing that you do.
Right.
And it's there, and
a good thing to do.
It's a very good thing to do.
Yes.
And it was highly encouraged, which, you know, I'm really lucky to have had
Yes,
that because so many people didn't get that encouragement. So.
And when did you win your first award in school? I'm sure that happened.
So that would have been 2009, freshman year of high school for me. I entered some work not in school, but my art teacher at the time told me about it. There was a science fiction fantasy convention happening in town, and I entered some work for an art show for that, and won it that year, and the following year, and the following year after that. So
all artists that I interviewed, they seem to have won awards somewhere down the road when they're in school, and often they really get noticed in like middle school. Were they starting to notice you in middle school about your art?
People were definitely noticing me, but there wasn't a lot in the way of like competitions and awards in the school systems I was in at the time.
But you were the class artist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I would wander around the school carrying sketchbooks. You know,
that's pretty much the class.
Yeah. You know, I was filling a sketchbook page or two every day, mostly working imaginatively, imagining creatures and characters from all kinds of different worlds. So
was that accepted, or were you like the outsider in that?
You know, I was definitely the outsider, partially by design, because I've never been really good at relating to other people, especially not people my own age. So I had a lot of trouble with that. So I was definitely an outsider. But there was a point when one of my few friends in middle school, I think it was the last year of middle school, we were kind of getting toward the end of the school year, and he said, "You know what, Jordan? I think you're probably the most respected kid in school." And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, no one bothers me. And everybody knows that I make art. So that's kind of cool.
They just let you do and you're in an age where they don't do bullying as much and those kind of things.
Yeah, you know, there was a little bit of it, but nothing like what I see in like 80s movies and stuff like that.
You would see it really big time.
Yeah, so luckily... it's not as much of an overt problem in terms of getting beat up, but yeah, there was ostracization, and definitely there were catty groups and cliques and things like that. But
was your hair as long as it was then?
Not at that point. It started getting there. End of middle school, I started growing it out. So throughout high school, it got to the length that it is.
Okay, yeah. For those who aren't watching this, it's down there. It's here we go. Yeah, we're talking butt length, kind of somewhere in there. Yeah. If I could do it, I would. But I always wanted hair that long, but never could get it. Even in the old hippie days, I just couldn't get it past my shoulders, really. But and then when I went to the military, they made me cut it. And it was like, oh, yeah. The first day of
tragedy
of training, I got a haircut. I'd had long hair, and I went and got a haircut, and the sergeant was like, "You need a haircut." And I'm like, "What?" I just cut it all off. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is way too long."
Oh man,
it's like okay. Well, anyway, enough of hair. But so you grow up, you're interested in it. You are the school artist, so probably there was no doubt in your mind you were going to go to art school.
Or
was it paleontology still on the table?
That was the thing. Paleontology, zoology, biology were all super important to me. So there was a period in middle school where I thought, I'd really like to be a marine biologist, specifically using ROVs and studying deep sea, like deep sea vents and down in the benthic zone, all kinds of really weird animals live down there. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to be the person seeing those for the first time and learning about them? And then there was somewhere like around freshman year of high school where it clicked for me. I was like, well, number one, I can't do math. So science doesn't make sense as a career choice, just a major interest. And also, I can make up my own weird creatures that no one's ever seen before.
This is true.
So I can just take it in that direction. So at that point, I really shifted my focus with a very strong drive, very hard work ethic toward becoming a professional illustrator and concept artist for entertainment design industries.
And that was in 9th grade, 10th grade, really? Yep. You made a decision, that was it?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And what did you see yourself doing in those high school years?
At
what
that
did you
time,
think you were going to do?
I was thinking I would probably be a concept artist for movies and video games. So being the person who kind of comes up with the designs for all kinds of stuff, creatures, vehicles, anything that doesn't exist in reality that you see in a piece of media, someone needs to design it.
Like Mad Max.
Exactly.
Kind of thing, right?
Yeah, right. All of those crazy cars and stuff were designed. And the most recent ones were designed by Weta Workshop, which was the studio I really wanted to work for. They're based in New Zealand, and they did everything for like Lord of the Rings, Chronicles of Narnia. They did the Kong movie that came out in 2004, which was just really cool. Love that one. And a bunch of other neat stuff. And I really thought, I'm going to build up my portfolio with the goal for working for them or anyone else who is like that. And I spent every day, somewhere between 3 to 5, 6 hours a day drawing, whether it was a school day or not. That was what I was doing. And I started learning how to use digital painting software, so Corel Painter and Photoshop and stuff like that, and was doing a lot of work in that sort of realm. There was, I was lucky to kind of grow up in a time when I have access to the internet and was able to engage with a lot of professionals and other people in the industry who were on these forums at the time. Conceptart.org was a big forum that a bunch of people would do challenges. Like every week, we have the character of the week and the creature of the week and the environment of the week, and you can participate in those and get a lot of feedback from other people. So it was great to be able to be a part of that and try to hone my skills that way. Mostly, I was still doing sketchbook drawing as the main thing, though. I really liked working with graphite and a lot of micron pens, different types of ink, walnut ink, and that was my main thing. So I kind of had this goal in mind of being, a digital artist, creating work for the entertainment design industry. But I still really liked that tactile quality of physical media more than the digital painting.
And you still do the digital stuff?
I don't. Yeah. Nope. I pretty much quit that cold turkey once I decided I could learn to oil paint instead. Yeah. Yep.
And was your school, did it promote art? I mean, did it have art classes?
Yeah. Like that? So I had a couple art classes in high school. It was nice. I was able to have a sort of studio art class and a ceramics class. Every year I was able to have both of those. Oh, wow. So 2
classes?
Yeah. There were 2 years where I only opted for one, but I had the option to have both classes every year. So, wow. Yeah. Yep.
So they were pro art.
Yeah, it was really good. And unfortunately, I don't think the school system is like that anymore. This was in Cranston, Rhode Island. Yeah. And I I think there were some budget cuts or something in the last few years since I graduated, and it's not quite as good as it was. But at the time, it wasn't an art school, but it was the best public school art program around, pretty much. So I was really lucky.
Yeah,
to be
you
there
really
for
were.
that. I got a lot of encouragement from the teachers.
Like no art classes, basically.
Yeah, and in senior year, my teachers had recognized that I was pretty much so able to do my own thing and have my own direction. I had my own work ethic. So they basically just turned it into an independent study for me. Like, okay, this is your 2 hours a day where you can make whatever art you need to, and we'll give you feedback if you want. So,
wow. So for 2 hours a day, you could do art plus your art classes?
No, those were the art classes. They basically
like
turned it into an independent study for me. Yeah.
And so then you applied to the Rhode Island School of Design. That's where you went, right?
Yeah, I did a pre-college program there beforehand while I was still in high school, and I was also doing other extracurricular activities there. So the folks over there got to know me. I worked as a student at a thing called Project Open Door, which was like letting high school students into the facilities at RISD to be able to use stuff, and befriended the director there and stuff. So I had some definite ins. So it was nice.
Well, because you made them in.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't because you made them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It helped that you lived in Rhode Island, too.
Yeah, that got me a nice discount in terms of tuition. So that was good.
And how was that school?
It was a good place to be in a lot of ways. There were some things that change, it's tough when you're a fairly young kid still and you have to decide what you're going to do in terms of college. I think that the most valuable thing that I was able to do at RISD is people really pushed me out of my comfort zone in ways I never would have beforehand.
You mean the type of art that they
the type of art they were having me do, the mediums I was working with. And, ultimately I still found a very narrow range of things that I like to do, but I was made to do a lot of things that I never would have before. And at the time I was kind of not into it in a lot of ways. It's I just want to draw some dragons or something. I'd really like to make an alien right now, but instead I'm making a cardboard sculpture of a lamp or something. And it's like, this isn't something I would do, but I definitely learned a lot in terms of making different objects out of different materials and thinking about three-dimensional form in two-dimensional painting and stuff like that. So,
which helped you when you did the swirl, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You got to see it in a different way. I'm sure all those things help integrate the way that you view art or view what could be art.
Yeah, definitely. And the way it works at RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design, is that everybody goes through the same foundational freshman year where you have to take a design class in 2D design, 3D design class, and also a drawing class. So I love the drawing classes. The drawing classes were awesome. I had a couple instructors that were good about teaching anatomy and things like atmospheric perspective and all that good stuff. It's like, yeah, that's where I want to be. And then I had this design class, and it's just like, man, I wish I did not have to go to these. But in hindsight, I'm really glad that I had. And then after that, I was able to sort of pick my own classes and electives, majored in illustration because that was the direction I wanted to go. And honestly, it's a really good thing that I majored in illustration, even though I'm mostly doing more fine art now, because the painting department at RISD was very much geared towards abstract expressionism, modern very much. So I wouldn't have learned anything there in terms of what I wanted to do. So the illustration department was great because it was all about, if not direct representational painting, although often it was about conveying concepts in ways that are actually visually comprehensible, rather than just anything random is acceptable. It has to be something that an audience can understand. So that's a really good way to think about anything. If you're trying to do representational painting, you need to think about who your audience is and what you're trying to communicate. So I think that was great. And
you also met your wife there.
Yes.
Wife-to-be, whatever.
Yeah, well, and I met her freshman year, the very first day of our very first class in a glass blowing or glass making studio. she was there, and she came on over to me and sat down at my desk because she saw that I had long hair, and I reminded her of all the 70s rock stars, and she thought that was really cool. So yeah, it was good.
Now we know why you keep the long hair.
Oh yeah, one of the many reasons.
Yeah, I'm sure. And she's an artist.
Yep.
A very good artist that does wildlife. She's working on bird stuff right now, right?
Yep, at the moment.
Give a shout out to her.
Yeah, her name is Emily Poole, and she is excellent. She's really good. Check out her work. Because we went through the same illustration program together, took a lot of the same classes, and we're constantly critiquing each other at home, right? Because we're able to understand what each of us is trying to do. And sometimes it's a little tough, like, can be hard-headed. And
when she goes, oh, I don't like this.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't put it that way.
But why?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I don't like the reason why, and vice versa. But eventually we reach a compromise and understand what's going on, and benefits everybody.
And you both love wildlife and nature, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a big component of what your art is. Mm-hmm. In fact, what our first show is going to be about. Mm-hmm. So, and what, how does that inform you, that love of nature, to what you do?
Well, it's just that to me, the natural world is where all of the wonders come from, right? This is the planet we live on, and everything that is amazing is not built by humans. Yeah. It's already been there,
right? And
it's still there, and it's important to protect it and honor it, and recognize that all these amazing species are there, and not just species, but speaking geologically, all of these incredible formations in the world. The landscapes and spaces that we exist in are just phenomenal. There's so much cool stuff going on that's been shaped by eons and eons of change. And it's just the wellspring of inspiration for me. It's where everything comes from.
So when you look at a painting, are you is it the land that moves you, or is it the things that are on the land, or is it a combination?
Combination. Yeah, absolutely. And I say all good things weren't built by humans. Humans have built some good things too. I am also really interested in architecture and history and all kinds of stuff like that too. But all of that is influenced by the natural world. Sure. Whether it's the
materials they use.
Yeah, materials or design elements. You go back into ancient Egypt, you've got so much papyrus and scarab iconography and all this cool stuff, right?
Right. And they're making it in a way that the environment, they can work with the environment so it doesn't kill them.
Yep.
Like in Chaco or Canyon Shea and these different places, which you haven't even got to see yet.
Not yet. Although photographs of Canyon de Chelly were the first things I saw when I was a kid that got me excited about the Southwest.
It's going to blow your mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just going to blow your mind. Mm-hmm. It's coming. And Monument Valley and you haven't seen the Grand Canyon, I guess, yet.
Not yet. Yeah. No. I'm getting there.
Yeah. I mean, you're young, so you get that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And do you put figures in your paintings ever, like either human or animals or that kind of thing? Yeah,
not so much in like the landscape paintings I've been doing so far. I have done a good amount of illustration work that has creature designs and some human figures and stuff like that too. Right. But I think I would like to do a little bit more in the future involving animals in my work, particularly less represented species, because one thing is that, I'll go into a gallery or go to a museum show or something, and I'll see a lot of paintings of, elk and buffalo moose and bison and all sorts of really big charismatic megafauna. And then I'll see all these sculptures of, really small sparrows and turtles and all these insects and cool stuff in sculptures, but no one's painting them. And I think that's really weird. And that's something that Emily is doing, was really honing in on smaller, underrepresented species in a lot of her work. And I think that it's a good way to go, because so many of the cool animals aren't really that big there. So, I'd love to do paintings of Gila monsters.
Right. As we went out and tried to find one yesterday, but still a little early.
But I got some great reference of desert tortoise out in Valley of Fire a little while ago. I'd love to make some paintings with that. Got some really nice Roadrunner reference yesterday. So I think I might end up doing some more paintings like that. I'd like to do stuff with ocean animals as well, particularly in the intertidal zone. All of the small anemones and crabs and sculpins and all kinds of cool stuff, because the ocean is big for me. I love exploring the desert now. I'm just getting into that, but the ocean is my history. You
grew up in Rhode Island, too.
It's the ocean state, right? So I always wanted to move toward the West Coast and check out the Pacific because it's so different. And that's where I am now, and I absolutely love exploring it.
You're in Eugene, right?
Yep, Eugene, Oregon. So I'm pretty close to the coast, close to the Cascades mountain range as well. So I can kind of go in either direction and see some different stuff that way. So
we've kind of talked about how you've become an artist and what you did, but when you got out of school, right, you graduated. Did you guys graduate at the same time?
We did, 2016.
So where did you go from there? What did you decide? Okay.
Well, we decided that I knew I didn't want to stay in Rhode Island because
it's Rhode Island.
It's Rhode Island, and Rhode Island has some cool stuff.
Yeah, but it's gray.
Yeah, I'd lived there my entire life in dozens of different houses within Rhode Island, actually moving around a lot as I was growing up, but still never leaving the state somehow. And I just thought, I really want to check out what's going on in the West. And while we were still in college, I had gone to visit Emily's home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Is where she
grew up in the West.
Yeah. So I was able to go there and realize, this is so much better. There's so much more. Because I grew up mostly in areas that were fairly suburban, not a lot of super easy access to wildlife and the outdoors in general. There's no wilderness to speak of. It's all second growth forest. The entire state of Rhode Island at one time was pretty much farmed into just agricultural land as far as the eye could see. So that is actually kind of cool because you wander around what forests there are now, and there are just all these stone walls everywhere from all the farmers that would build those up. But, all those forests are young. They're less than 100 years old, a lot of them. So it's just such a different feeling being out in the West where things are truly ancient. And there you can go out and hike, 10 miles into the wilderness somewhere and look around, and there's no sign of human habitation anywhere. Did you go directly to Oregon? We did. Yeah, we were kind of deciding whether we wanted to move to the desert or move to the Pacific Northwest, and both were potentially really good options. We were kind of looking at Sedona for a little while, and then looking at like Seattle and Portland, which are too expensive, and we didn't want to be in such a big city anyway. So we decided on Eugene because
it's a great city.
Yeah, it's a nice town, and I felt I needed to be close to the ocean just because I really always wanted to explore the tide pools and stuff in the Pacific. So.
We're 4 hours from the ocean here, by the way.
Yeah,
from Tucson.
Yeah.
Sea Cortez and all that.
Little south.
Yeah, you just go to Mexico. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we should be so close to the ocean, but we are. It's probably one of the reasons we got this great monsoonal flows, and it's a very lively desert with lots of green. I mean,
definitely
you see it and you go, wow, this doesn't look like what a desert should look like.
Yeah. Well, it's so cool. I was just thinking about it yesterday. The Sonoran Desert is very green. It's very verdant. It's not what all the movies would have you believe a place with saguaros is. And I grew up in the Rhode Island school system where they don't really teach you anything about what's going on in the West, right? You learn about the Puritans and you'll learn about witch hunts and stuff like that, but Industrial Revolution, but you don't learn much about what's happening out in the West, or at least I didn't in the classes I had. So everything I knew when I was growing up was that, okay, so you go down south and then there's Texas, and then California's out there
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah. New Mexico
right?
doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
That's part
What's
of,
New Mexico? I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And my little kid brain was basically like, oh yeah, all the saguaro cactus grow in Texas, and it's really dusty and there are tumbleweeds. So until I started doing more research as I was older, I had no idea what it's like out here, and even until actually being here, you don't know what it's like.
No. You got to live in the desert, and to paint the desert, you have to explore the desert. You can't just do it by photos and stuff. Yeah, in my opinion, you can't capture it. You can't capture the light right. Nothing.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Exactly. And when I do paintings of places, I like them to be places that I've been to. That's just, I get a lot more emotional connection to it, and also just learn so much more about it by being there. Right. So, I'll do my illustration work based on photo reference and a lot of imaginative stuff. But when I'm painting landscapes and tree portraits and stuff like that, there's stuff that I've been there. I've looked at them. If it's a tree, I've probably given it a hug.
That's good. Is your favorite species the bristlecone pine?
That's probably one of my favorite tree species. Yeah, they're really cool. Just visually and in terms of their history. But probably my very favorite is the whitebark pine, which is similar. They're very closely related. They're both 5-needle pines. So there's also limber pine and the foxtail pine, which are all kind of closely related. And they're all high elevation alpine pines. And they live for a really long time and grow into really, really cool trees.
Yeah, weird shapes.
Yeah, a lot of times, you're up at high elevations, so you get the Krumholtz effect, where trees become compact and windblown, and, get just sort of battered by the elements in such a way where they form these amazing shapes.
I think we can relate to them as humans, honestly. We see ourselves in these things. It's, at least I do. Yeah. And as far as for native cultures, they really incorporate them into their religion and how they are, grandmother tree and all this. And for me, it's junipers. Yeah. Those are the ones that just,
Well, that would be the next one on the list for me. Absolutely.
You'll see one that's 1,000 years old that looks like it's dead, but yet there's like one little component of it still alive, that's somehow struggling.
Yeah, you get that one vein of
still alive
bark going along.
And then the dead wood has been there for 2,000 years or who knows. Or you get the big, major, massive ones that get in the right location and they just thrive in the desert, like up in Utah and Moab and stuff. And you're like, God, this thing's just killing it. Why? Just in the right little crag,
It is.
And fire hasn't gotten to it. Or if it has, it didn't kill it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you see a lot of them with totally blackened trunks and sections where the fire did come through, but some part of them was able to keep going on. So,
redwoods need that fire.
Yeah, that's how the cones go. So,
I would think they would be hard to paint, honestly.
I haven't seen redwoods in person yet, but I would tend to agree because you're mostly going to get a painting of a trunk.
That's what you will get.
Which can be cool. I love trunks.
Yeah.
But they're not a species where it's very conducive, I think, compositionally to getting the whole tree in there, because they would end up just being really vertical, and you wouldn't see so much of what's going on in the actual character of their limbs and stuff like that, because it'd be so small compared to how tall it is.
Dixon did one painting that I know of, well, actually a couple, but one really great drawing of redwoods. And he still had to get back enough so he could show enough of the. Yeah. It became more of a structure of
Well, and they are
lots
really,
of them. Not just a single tree kind of a thing.
You got to get that forest in there.
Yeah, they are amazing trees. I get the same feel when I'm around them as I do the saguaros. Yeah. For whatever reason, it's a very similar kind of emotional kind of connection I can feel them. And I don't know what about the sequoias because I haven't been to those yet. So. Yeah, you going to paint any of those?
Sequoias, maybe.
Again, talking about huge.
Yeah, I mean they're very cool as well. And I say that redwoods might not be as conducive, but I don't know. I haven't tried yet, so you don't know until you try. But I'm not sure I'll be able to do a trip down to see the sequoias in time for the show. But I am planning to go see the bristlecones again. Nice. And I'll be going up around Crater Lake to see some of the cool old white bark pines over there. And I'm working from a lot of my photo reference of junipers, Sierra junipers up in Yosemite. There's some really cool trees.
Yeah.
And also out throughout Utah, there are really great Utah junipers.
And here too.
Yeah. Yep.
Excellent. Yep. And so when you went to Eugene, did you start doing illustration at that point in time?
Yep. So I was trying to build up my portfolio as a professional illustrator in terms of doing science fiction, fantasy illustration work. Both, like, I was trying to do book covers, illustrations for games, and also tabletop games, not just video games, but a lot of things when you think of like Dungeons and Dragons and similar role-playing games, they have these wonderful books that are full of all kinds of really fantastic illustrations. So I was able to work for a couple companies doing some of that type of stuff. That was
digital that you had been doing?
Nope, I was painting in oil at that point. So pretty much at sophomore year of college, I quit digital because I started painting in oil and realized, all of the artists that are doing this illustration work for publishing that I really like are oil painters, and they're able to do it. They don't have to do it digitally. You can work with a tactile medium and still make fantasy art in the modern age.
You think that'll exist for much longer?
Oh, yeah. I think so. It doesn't exist anymore in the concept art industry. It's why I decided not to go the entertainment design realm, because everything there is now mainly photo bashing. So that's when you are in Photoshop or Procreate, whatever program you're using, and you take a bunch of photo references and basically collage them together in order to create an image with a little bit of digital painting over the top to kind of tie everything together. And, the concept art industry now, everything moves so fast in the production line that there's no time to really make nice paintings. You're just trying to get the vaguest idea across possible.
And AI is probably going to even change it even more dramatically.
There are a lot
the next 2 years.
There are a lot of artists that are really concerned about that right now.
They should be.
In that industry particularly. Yeah. So it's tough. But I realized, seeing that it was going in that direction back in college, I thought, that's not really what I want to do. I feel like I'm more of a craftsperson. I want to make good work. I don't want to just make something that's good enough for the idea to get across. Yeah, exactly. That's what I grew up with, and I have an appreciation for good quality work, and that's what I want to be able to do. So I realized that in terms of sci-fi and fantasy stuff, all of the quality work was being done in the publishing industry with books and RPG manuals and stuff like that. So
you started doing those?
Yeah. Yep.
And got them sold to different places?
Yeah. I worked for a few different companies, and I also did a lot of tutorials. So there was a company that would hire me to create tutorials that they publish for like how to design a dinosaur-based creature, or paint a cockatrice. This is how you do it.
Are those still out there?
Yeah, they're out there. The publishing company was called 3D Total, and I did a good number of works for them. Yeah, I did. I think like 4 or 5 just sort of standalone tutorials, and then a bunch for some of the books that they had published as well. So. Yep.
And so at some point you go, maybe this isn't the route, right?
Yeah, well, it's funny. It started for me, I wanted to get better at painting landscapes in my illustrations because that was a weak point for me. I was mostly doing creature design, and I was able to, create all of these figurative characters and creatures and imaginative stuff. But whenever I tried to place everything into a scene, into a landscape, it was a little wishy-washy a lot of the time, just because I didn't have a handle on it as well. So I wanted to improve that, and I thought, well, I live in the West now, and there's a lot of really cool stuff out here. So I started trying to do landscape paintings from life, but also from reference I'd gather when hiking. Emily and I are really outdoorsy folks, so we like to go hiking all over the place up in the region where we live. So we'd be out there pretty much every week, somewhere on a new trail. And I'd be gathering reference, and I'd bring it back to the studio and do some painting. And for a while, it was really bad. I was not making good work for a couple years, really, before it started getting good. But I was having a lot of fun doing it, and realized, I'm getting a lot of a strong connection to the work that I'm making based on these environments and these different locations. in a way that I didn't necessarily get when I was doing illustration work. And I realized, I can make what I want to make, not what someone else wants me to make,
Right.
which was huge. Because all throughout high school and everything, I'm filling up all these sketchbooks, and they're all my designs, my ideas, my things. And then I start doing more illustration work, and it's sort of
it's a job.
Well, yeah, it's a job. It's a job. It's still a fun job. But there was one particular project where I realized, I don't really want to do this unless it's a project I'm super passionate about. So I still do some illustration work when I'm really passionate about it and I think it's a good idea and I can basically make it mine. But I struggle with jobs that aren't interesting to me or, aren't what I feel like my voice is. Because a lot of times when you're doing illustration work, the client's going to ask for revisions. Something you did isn't what they wanted. And often they ask you to ruin the painting. They ask you to turn it into something that's a lot less good. And you have to because you have a contract and you're getting paid. And there was one particular job where that happened. And I was just like, nope, I don't think I want to do that anymore.
Yeah. Did you do what they asked you to do?
To the best of my ability. It still wasn't as much of what they wanted, though. So they actually had another illustrator do a digital paint over this lady's face that I had painted. Yeah. This lady is kind of, blasting a energy beam out of her head at some enemy somewhere. Right. And I painted her like, oh yeah, she's fighting. Like she's out there. She's kind of, trying to stay alive. The client had another illustrator paint her face over, and this is a woman of color, by the way, as well. Paint her face over, whitewash her, and give her a smile. So she's smiling while
trying to survive.
Yeah. So I was just like, I don't think that's for me. Yeah. I don't think I want to be a part of that so much. So and I was realizing, I can paint the cool stuff around me too, and also, still do some of my illustration work that I really like, and do it on my own terms. Right. So that's how that went.
So when you made that decision, was that like, okay, that's it, I'm not doing that anymore, and now I'm just going to figure out a way to make a living selling paintings?
Yeah, selling paintings and teaching. I've been doing a lot of teaching. So
and is that internet via YouTube kind of things or what?
Mostly in-person classes so far. So I've done a lot of classes with some of the local art centers in Eugene, and I'm kind of embarking on doing more long-term workshops and guided residencies and stuff like that.
Do you enjoy that?
Yeah. It's fun because it kind of helps me know what I'm doing as well. I can learn more about my actual process when I have to talk it out and tell people what's going on. And I like it because it's sort of a way of giving back to the community. I ended up doing a lot of teaching back in college for that same project I had attended as a high school student.
So you get to get back.
Yeah. So that was kind of my introduction to teaching, and I thought, oh yeah, that's a cool thing. I can do that. I've been doing that. I do classes sometimes once a month. Sometimes they're a little more spread out than that, but teaching a variety of things, but mostly oil painting, studio painting, plein air painting, and intro to oil.
And where did you learn how to do? I know you went out and did plein air, on your own, but did you, reach out and do any workshops with any of the people that teach these, like Ray Roberts or Matt Smith or any of these people?
If I had the money, I might have, but I never did. So it's all mostly self-taught. Right. Again, the online resources that I've been able to have while going on my artistic journey are great because
there's a lot out there, I would assume, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. I was hugely influenced by James Gurney, both in terms of my illustration work and the plein air work. He kind of does it all. He, for those that don't know, did the Dinotopia books, which are, culmination of everything I loved growing up and still do. He has all these awesome instructional videos that were great. There are a lot of other people in the entertainment design industry that I learned from for plein air painting and other things like that as well. If you look around online, you can find some great stuff. The Watts Atelier School has really great content and stuff like that. So there's a lot around.
And before you started showing with me, which is just a fairly recent thing, you were showing at other galleries?
Yep. Yeah, I got my first gallery representation about a year and a half ago for a gallery on the coast called the Mind Power Gallery. But I've done a few shows, my work in group shows and things like that. I was for a long time trying to sell my own work online, which wasn't working out very well for me, just because marketing is always kind of tough. And in order to do it well, you have to devote a lot of time to it, and then you can't spend that time painting. And I also, had a retail job I was working, and I didn't have enough time while also trying to think about my illustration work because I was still kind of doing that at the time too. So it was just too many irons in the fire, and I need more focus. So I started thinking, I need someone else to do all that for me so that I can actually make my stuff happen. So
it's interesting how I found you, just so other people will know, or actually you found me. You reached out to me twice, if I remember correctly. I think. And I remember I got the first one. So this is a good thing for people to listen. So I got the first email, looked at it, go, yeah, it's really good. Yeah, it's very good. And then of course 100 other emails come in, and then it's like, oh, it's out of mind. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to reach out to that kid again. And I figured you seem like you were very young. And then you reached out again to me, and I was looking at it, and at about that same time, almost exactly that same time, Josh Elliott contacted me, who I respect greatly, and we have a show for him, in fact, right now. But he said, he goes, do you know this kid? And I go, yeah, I just got his stuff. He goes, yeah, I think he's really good. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's a big thing to say from Josh Elliott, because, he's not going to say it unless he believes it. And I'm looking at it again, and I go, yeah, this kid really is good. I'm sorry to call you a kid, but you're 28, so you're the youngest.
Relatively speaking.
You're definitely the only person in my gallery who's in their 20s. Josh Gibson's 30 now. So, and how did you get to know Josh, or how did that happen?
So
we're talking about Josh Elliott.
Josh Elliott, he's a great guy and has offered me a lot of advice over the last couple of years. And I just contacted him on Instagram. I'd been following his work for a while. I have a bunch of artists that I respect and look up to, and I like their work, and I kind of, look at all of the things that they post online, and eventually work up the courage to say, hey, I'm looking
struggling
to get some information, because I am struggling. And Josh was awesome. He sent me this whole long list of things like, okay, well, you should apply to these shows, and you should maybe think about getting in touch with these galleries, and here's some other things to do. And at a little while later, I had a phone call with him too, and just sort of talked some things out. So yeah, he was really great for just pushing me to join the Oil Painters of America and California Art Club, and I've had some work in a few of their shows. The gold medal exhibition coming up, I'm going to have a big seascape in, so that's going to be cool. And basically, just he told me to get out there and start doing it, and get over the thought that I might not be good enough, because he had originally started commenting on some of my work online and saying, like, hey, this is really good, and I realized, oh well, if Josh Elliott says it's really good, maybe it's actually good. Because it's always nice when anybody tells you your work is good, but when somebody you really respect tells you, then you've got something. So it does. It makes a difference. Yep.
And so who are some of the other artists that you respect or like that you've watched that work artist-wise?
Yeah, well, in terms of contemporary folks, so many. And you've got a lot of them in here. So I've been following Matt Smith's work for a long time, and kind of studying the way he does his work in plein air. And it's like, he's got a few little snippets of videos here and there, and, I'd analyze, how's he laying down the brush? What's going on there?
Well, he teaches, but it costs money.
Exactly. And, I didn't have a lot of that.
He is a great teacher too.
Yeah. I bet. And who else?
Glenn Dean, maybe.
Glenn Dean was great. Yep. I discovered his work a little bit more recently. I think there were some others like Ray Roberts I was looking at for a while longer. Again, he had some online instructional videos that I found pretty useful.
He's a great teacher.
And just a whole bunch of folks.
Yeah. Yeah, I started representing Glenn even. He was younger than you.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's rare to find somebody that has enough chops artistically and then also discipline. You got to have both.
Yeah.
To get a major gallery. I'm using that term, but I guess it's apt for me.
Oh yeah,
just
I'd say so.
From just longevity, if nothing else. To go, okay, who's this person? What's this? Do we want to? Is it a good fit? Is it going to work for decades? Right. So, my son's going to take over the business at some point. He works in the gallery, and he's going to, so this could be a 40, 50-year project, right? So you want it to be good. You don't want to make a, for both, right? Not just for us, but for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fun to watch when you can find somebody like yourself. And sunset to sunrise to sunset painting. Yeah, that's what I want.
Me too.
I know. That's what that's like the hone of being an artist. If you don't have that, you may want to rethink the profession because it really takes that kind of effort. Just like as a gallerist, it takes me, I don't shut it off. It takes all that time every day, all the day. Yeah. But I love it, and that's why I do it. I can do it. So where do you see things headed from here? What's the next? Besides, I know right now you're working on my show, which is a big deal.
That's a big thing. Mostly I just want to do whatever I can to make sure I can keep painting and make a full living out of it. Right now I'm still not a full-time artist yet.
Right.
That's the goal, is just to be able to keep making cool paintings. I'm clearly going to be doing a lot of cacti now because I've got some amazing cactus reference, right? I'd like to do more work exploring, a lot of different ecosystems, a lot of different geological areas all around the world. Someday, traveling a little bit more, but for now, at least around the West, and keep on finding new interesting things. Yeah, so probably more shows and stuff going in the future. Don't know which they'll be just yet, but
it'll come. It'll all start to slowly just kind of come together. I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Have you looked at NFTs at all? I'm just curious.
I haven't really, just because I'm more into that traditional tactile quality of things. So the idea of stuff being digital and not tactile isn't really where I am. But if
of course your tactile paintings can become NFTs.
Right. And I haven't looked into it that much, so it's not something I'm super knowledgeable about.
We'll put Charles on that for you.
All right.
And so what advice would you give to a young artist, you're 28, who's just starting, and you're kind of maybe even a little younger, maybe not younger, maybe they're a little earlier in their career? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing would be to really know what you're interested in and work on that and work on the fundamentals, because you need to understand light, form, color, temperature, all of that kind of stuff that is constant throughout any kind of representational painting. You need to understand how that all works before jumping into anything more complicated. And when I was learning, I was sort of doing the imaginative work alongside learning about the fundamentals and kind of putting them back and forth. So it doesn't matter what you're interested in, that's always going to be there, but you need to have something specific that you're interested in and really follow that, and find education in whatever way you can, whether it's through a school or through online learning or something that's focused in that thing that you're particularly interested in. Because a general education can be nice. It exposes you to things that you didn't necessarily know about, but sometimes I wish I had gone to a more specific atelier style school that really honed in on the things I really was interested in. And I did that on my own. I learned however I could, wherever I could, whatever information I could glean from whatever sources, in books, in videos, and all kinds of different stuff. So, I think being able to be observant of all the things around you that you can learn from is really important. Just always observe everything, and don't
be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Yeah.
I mean, you reached out to Josh, you reached out to me, don't be afraid.
Yeah. I'm still working on that. So
yeah. We all are, including myself, Jordan.
Yep.
I can assure you. And now you also are you're on Instagram, but you're also on TikTok.
Yes.
Now, you may be the only artist I have that's on TikTok.
Nope.
So, but that makes sense. You're 28 and it's a media that you understand. So tell people a little bit about what you're doing there and how they can find you.
Yeah. So I actually share most of the content from TikTok on my Instagram as well. I do just repeat the same videos back and forth. But I've been having a lot of fun doing video content over the last couple of years. I'm just able to share a lot more of my process that way. I can do, videos of me painting and describing what's going on.
Right.
It's kind of the same way as I would in a class when I'm teaching. So I can do little snippets of that. And it's a lot of fun, and I think folks can enjoy it. Whether
it's great.
you're trying to learn from it or just want to know more about, what I'm doing from either an artist trying to see what's going on or a collector or whatever. So, yeah, I put those out pretty often, at least once
You're
a week
good.
or so.
Yeah, it's important.
So, yeah.
I think it's truly very important for artists to do this.
Yeah.
And galleries, by the way. They both better be doing it, or they're not going to push forward.
Yeah.
And so what's the your Instagram account?
Oh man, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I believe it's Jordan K. Walker Art.
It is, actually.
Yes. Okay, good.
You got to put in the K because there's some other Jordan Walkers, like
there are
baseball player and some other ones. Yeah. So you got to have the K in there.
Yep. And it should be the same thing on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Unless you have anything else to say, we'll let you get back to painting. He's going to go right back up to Spino Canyon. It's like at 1 in the afternoon, and he's going to go back up and be there all day long. He's came with 6 canvases, and he's painted 5, so he's got 1 more he wants to get done.
Yeah, we'll see if I can make it happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Well, we're really excited about you being on our gallery. It's going to be fun watching you ride. I have no doubt it's going to be a really exciting, just to see how you develop, right, to what you ultimately like to. I mean, clearly trees are one of the things. I can feel it. They're palpably have a sense. I've already bought 2 for myself, folks, so if that tells you anything. And my son as well, and my foster daughter. So, we're all buying these things. We see the path, we feel it. And, it's going to be really fun to watch. It really is.
Well, I'm excited about it, too, and happy to be here.
Yep. All right. Jordan K. Walker, artist extraordinaire. Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Bye. That was fun.
That was fun.
And good.
Yeah.